All right, we'll go ahead and get started. I want to welcome everybody here, everyone in the audience. Thank you for coming to our June 14, 2022 meeting of the Escambia Children's Trust Board. If you wish to speak, there is a paper right there on the podium that you can fill out and hand to one of the women up front. And you'll be allotted 3 minutes to speak. At this time, we're going to move to the adoption of the agenda, and you should all have an amended agenda at your desk. The Grants Committee report will be given by Ms. Greer, and we will not be discussing the staff benefits for the Escambia Children's Trust at this time. Is there a motion to adopt the agenda as changed?
So moved.
Is there a second? Second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All right, that passes. The next is the approval of minutes. And they were sent out last week. However, there were a few corrections that have yet to be changed. And so what we'd like to do is table minutes for approval until the next meeting, which would be July the 11th,
So
July the
moved.
12th. Second?
Second.
Any discussion? All right, all in favor of tabling the minutes for approval until our next board meeting, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. At this time, Dr. Smith will deliver the treasurer report that ends on May the 31st, 2022.
Okay, thank you, Madam Chair. If you have, does everybody have the report to reference? Okay, we'll go through that quickly and get an assessment of where we stand financially. If you look on page 3 of 21, that's really the first page of numbers after the table of contents. That's the balance sheet. You will see our total assets, $7,552,027.29. And you'll see the largest of that is in the cash and bank, 7.5 million. And then we have some other assets of $550. And then we have equipment and furniture, which is at $12,119. So that totals at that 7.552. Moving to the liabilities and equity section on the lower half of the page, you'll see our accounts payable at $15,539.33. We have some credit card totals there under 1,000. And then the largest item there is going to be the dollars due to the Escambia County tax collector of $231,895.13. Total liabilities at $248,273.48. You'll see the equity then totals at $7.3 million, $7,303,753.81. Moving to page 5 of 21 on the profit and loss, you'll see the gross profit there, and you'll see that's at 7.7 million, $7,736,020.04. And then you see the expense breakdowns there in those categories. The largest being that category of $104,861.74, the operating expenditures. And that largest amount of $84,263.50 is from professional services. I'm sorry, the first category is the highest of $232,211.18, the financial and administrative category. And that's where those tax collector fees come in that I mentioned earlier. So if we move over to the next section, which is page 7 of 21, the profit and loss simply broken down by month. And then we'll go to the trim line budget versus the actual year-to-date. That's page 9 of 21. You'll see the report of budgeted and over budget or under budget. And you'll see the breakdowns there. Before we move on, are there any questions on that particular page, the trim line budget versus actual year-to-date? You'll see again that large category in operating expenditure. Page 11 of 21 begins the general ledger. So you see the item by item breakdowns. And that is quite lengthy, that section, with the individual expenses, payments, deposits, and so forth.
If I might, because I really didn't look at this as carefully as I should have. The Florida Alliance of Children's Councils and Trust, are we a member yet or not? I keep seeing voided by the, where it says void for payment.
We sent the check, but it only had one signature. So the Positive Pay system caught that, and so it was voided, and we're going to resend the check. So it was in a stack of checks, and that's my fault. I just let it out without realizing it didn't have both signatures, so.
Okay, thank you.
I apologize. Did we vote on that last month? Have we voted to join?
I don't remember. Did we vote to join on that one?
I don't.
It was in the budget, so it was discussed at the budget committee, and it was a line item in the budget.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so that completes the review of the management report that ended May 31st, 2022.
We don't vote on it? Okay. Are there any discussions any questions to ask Dr. Smith?
I do
Yes.
have a question. I noted, and I forget where, but I saw in there a notation regarding rent and utilities and things, and then I saw a notation regarding the Pensacola State College, and just curious as to where, and we're meeting here tonight and all, and wondering where we stand in regards to the move into those facilities. Will we at some point be having our meetings at that location, and where does that in regards to noting the rent and things on the
So
balance sheet?
the rent amount that you see in there is for the entire year, and that does include utilities and internet access.
Right.
That's a heck of a deal. It was $5,300, and
Yes.
I think $5,350 for the year. So that is paid, and we have moved into the office suite. It's a small suite of offices. I think the consensus is that we should probably continue to have our full board meetings here. That way they can be televised and open to the community. But certainly when we have committee meetings or if there are special meetings, Dr. Meadows has been very gracious and has said that we can have any meetings that we would like on campus. They will accommodate us.
Okay.
So,
Thank you. I did note on the website that we have the little picture of our location there and also, very nice. Thank you.
Any more questions for Dr. Smith? All right, at this time, we're going to have Mrs. Greer, our Executive Director, is going to do her Executive Director's report.
So we're continuing to make progress. So I'm happy to announce that we have another staff member. Dr. Kimberly Krupa has joined us as our Director of Programs and Performance. So yesterday was her first day, and she hit the ground running because then we had our first grants committee meeting all afternoon. So very, very, very happy to have her on the team, and we have one more team member coming, and she starts on Tuesday of next week. So then we'll really be ready to start moving things along very quickly. In the past month, since the last meeting, Avian did a phenomenal job. She redesigned the website. We moved it over from Wix to WordPress so that it plays nicely with Constant Contact so that we can get our newsletter out to a broader audience, and it's less likely to be caught in people's spam filters, so that's going to be very helpful. We've had people sign up for the newsletter. Avian has also created a LinkedIn account for the trust and an Instagram account for the trust and a Facebook profile, which we had before, and so she's keeping all that updated. So doing lots of things around social media and communications and getting the word out about the trust, and just trying to push some general information that would be useful to parents and to children's services providers in the community to make sure that they know that we're here as a resource and that they start to see this information and know that they can come to our website for that kind of information. So the other thing we did, which probably drove each of you insane over the last few weeks, is we also moved our email platform and all of our files to a more secure system with the Microsoft Office 365 cloud-based system, and we implemented multi-factor authentication for the email. So sorry for how much fun that was, but on the upside, you don't have to worry about anyone sending out a mass email to all of your contacts in your telephones saying that the email came from you and asking them for money or to buy some kind of gift cards. So we have multi-factor authentication in place, and we also have moved our documents to a SharePoint folder. So there is now a board folder that lives in the cloud, and everything that we do, everything that you all approve, all of the minutes, forevermore shall be held in that SharePoint account. So even if some of the older files aren't necessarily accessible or visible, if you will, on our website, as we go along and we get older, we're going to have many more documents, but we'll have them archived, and you all can log in at your leisure from anywhere that you are and see all of those documents. And they'll be password protected, and so we'll have everything archived. So that was a major undertaking, but we've got it, and everything is set up. So moving forward, it'll be clean and neat, and everything will be accessible. So I'm very happy about having gotten that finished. I've been continuing to meet with community agencies. Now that Dr. Krupa is on board, I'm really looking forward to getting out there and meeting with more of the providers. I think I've met most of the community leaders in Escambia County, many different organizations. I've gone out and told them what the trust is, what we're doing, what our plan is, how we're working on our needs assessment, and the structure, and invited them to the board meetings and done all of that. And so now it's time to really get into the community and start talking to the providers and getting them ready to start applying for funding as we start putting out the larger RFPs in response to the needs assessment, which we're also working on. And by we, I really mean Kimberly, because she is the brains behind that. So in the last month, I've got the list of some of the different agencies, organizations that I've met with. Also worked on getting benefits lined up for the staff, working very hard to keep it within the budget that was approved. There's a separate slide about that. I'll show you that in just a second. And I have talked to Mr. Peden, and we're going to have a personnel committee meeting to go through all the detail behind that so that we can come back to the board. That's why it was taken off the agenda, because we wanted to have a deeper discussion, and then we'll bring that back to the full board after the personnel committee has had a discussion. Because what we need to do is determine what percentage of the cost of the benefits the board would like to cover as our benefits package for the staff. and then we can bring that back. So just wanted to have that conversation separately. So that's where we are with the benefits. We received our responses to the RFP for the Kindergarten Bridge program, which I was amazed. I said I would be happy if we got 3 or 4 responses, considering the quick turnaround. We got 4, so I was very happy about that. And then also in your packet, marked as draft, you received an RFP. We had discussed it at the last meeting to do an RFP or an invitation to bid around 2 different topics: water safety and early childhood education, and the importance of early childhood education, and really moving to professionalize that field and to have the community really see that as a need and something important for children. There's lots of talk in the community about positive brain development and things that you can do for your children. And there's billboards everywhere trying to advertise for folks to work in the early childhood programs. But part of the issue that we're seeing is that some parents just don't realize the value of early childhood education. So that is in the RFP. So the way that it's written, it's one document, one RFP, but a collaborative group, preferably of a subject matter expert, a PR firm, just get different groups together to figure out how to get the right message out to the right folks. They can do one or the other or both of the topics if they so desire to apply. Again, we left it kind of open just to see what they come up with in terms of messaging and how they would approach this. But again, it's around water safety and early childhood education. And you have the draft RFP in your packets, so I hope that you had a chance to take a look at that. Back to the staff benefits. In our budget that you all had already seen, just to get a number in there, we took 25% of the staff salary amount and allocated $102,696 for benefits, and that includes the retirement and health and vision and dental and all of that. And these are the costs that we were able to get. These are really great plans. They're competitive. And this is what we came up with. I'm still waiting to hear on the short-term and long-term disability and the life insurance. As soon as I get that amount, then we'll be able to have that full discussion at the Personnel Committee meeting. But I just wanted you to see that we're coming in way under budget already. And that is 100% of the cost. That's without assigning any of it to the employees. So I think we're pretty good. I think we're pretty competitive with our benefits package. But just wanted to at least give you those numbers so you could see where we are with it so far. The action items on the agenda tonight, we did have the Grants Committee meeting yesterday, and I think it went well. We had a former kindergarten teacher as part of the review committee. We had Bruce Watson, who is the head of the Early Learning Coalition, and then we had the executive director for Achieve Escambia, who facilitates the KCAN, the Kindergarten Community Action Network. Okay, I had to remember what the CAN stands for. So we did have some folks who understand the field, who know what we're talking about. They reviewed the applications. Again, it was a very, very quick turnaround. You have a document in front of you that shows you the scores from each of the reviewers, the cutoff score that was selected. There are comments for the recommendations for funding. The 2 who were recommended for funding were Potential Preschool Academy and Ready Kids Florida. I say we, it wasn't me, I was not part of the committee. We had no staff on the committee. The committee recommended Ready Kids for the full amount that they requested at $27,700. Potential Preschool Academy had a few line items in their budget that we just didn't think were, we didn't think that they went with the proposal. They had asked for funding specifically for 2 vans, to purchase outright the vans to bring the children to the program for just a few weeks, and we didn't think that that was a responsible use of funds under this particular RFP because you don't need to purchase the vehicles to the tune of about $93,000 just to use them for a few weeks. Now, we do understand that transportation is an issue. We've been hearing that over and over, and that may come back before the board as something as we go through the needs assessment that we definitely would like to address. Doesn't mean it's a bad proposal, doesn't mean it's a bad idea, just means this wasn't the place for it. So we would like to go back to them, and what I told the committee is, when you go through these grants committees and these grants processes, you can absolutely recommend that someone be funded, but for an amount other than what they proposed. So that's exactly what they did. They came back and they said, 40,000 seems very reasonable for the number of children that they're proposing to serve, and they had a good curriculum, and they had a great proposal. It was just some of the items in the budget. So that's the recommendation, to fund them for 40,000. And then the other action item that you have is the draft RFP for your consideration. So, yeah.
Can I ask a question? So I assume, and again, this is a very layman question, but I assume that they still believed that they could do everything that they were proposing that they could offer without the transportation issue. I mean, for instance, are they still going to be able to serve a population recognizing that there may not be kids who can get to and from there? Does that make sense? Does everybody see what I'm saying?
Yeah, that absolutely makes sense. If you didn't hear the question, the concern is, could they still do the program without the transportation piece? And the committee did leave in a little bit of a cushion in terms of funding, because some of the parents may be able to bring their children. They may not need the transportation. Other parents may need, they may need to think of creative things that they could do, like to give vouchers for Lyfts or Ubers or something of that nature, or rent a van. So some money was left in there for that, and we can do that through negotiations and ask them to resubmit a budget. But that's a great question.
And this is concerning potential, correct? Or no?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So potential, if I'm not mistaken, they have a monthly stipend for the children, a monthly cost for the children that attend there regularly. So how can we, or what do we know about them and their ability to get the targeted children that needs this study?
So
I'm not familiar with them at all.
You're not familiar with them at all?
Not at all.
So one of the advantages of having folks on the grants committee who know the community, I'll just go out on a limb here, and I'm not speaking for Bruce Watson, but I will share that he felt confident that they had a good program and that they could deliver the services.
To the targeted
To
children
the targeted
that
population, yes, sir,
needs it
because-
the most.
Yes, sir, because we know it's going to be quick, and it's going to be a challenge to find this group of children.
I read did everyone get the proposals that were sent out, or just the
haven't read
people? Okay, that might be a good, idea to
Sure.
send the proposals to everybody, and just in case
Yeah.
they want to read it, but I read them all. And they already have a relationship with Scenic Heights neighborhood, and so they were going to use that relationship, if I remember
Now
correctly.
we're talking, okay.
So that's how they were going to do it. But that was, that's a valid concern. But they said that it was, that was one of the questions, is how are you going to reach the target population that we want?
Absolutely.
And so they said they already had a relationship with Scenic Heights. And they're all trying to get, correct me if I'm wrong, kids who have not had VPK yet or been in a Head Start program. That was their target
Now we're
market they were supposed to target.
Okay.
Right.
So.
And Ready Kids is right on. I mean, eCare, can I still call it eCare? Is that okay? So, yeah, eCare, they have a track record. They know where the children are. They built those relationships. I've never heard of Potential Preschool Academy.
It's with Potential Church on Creighton Road. But it might be a good, I don't know if everyone would like to see the grants, but in the future, for the next ones.
Yes,
Just
absolutely.
forward them on to everybody, if they're not on the
Okay.
committee or not.
Sure.
As long as they can get the targeted children that this is for more than anyone else, I'm with it.
Okay. Thank you.
So, Madam Chair, and I apologize if this has already been mentioned, but could you give us a brief overview of exactly, because the recommendation for funding is $40,000. What is the bulk of that cost going to? And same with the Ready Kids.
So the bulk of the cost on both of those is the staff time, the folks to actually provide the direct services to the children.
Okay,
That's the lion's share of the funding on both of them.
so staffing is.
Staff,
Okay.
yes.
Okay, thank you.
Ready Kids also had a lot for marketing as well, because they were trying, and for transportation, because they're paying to bring the kids to
Right.
the program. And was it a 3 2-hour programs?
Theirs were workshops.
Workshops, yeah.
So, yeah, and the outreach is a chunk. Ms. White is absolutely correct. There is some money in the Ready Kids proposal, but the majority of the funding is for the staffing, for the folks to deliver the program. So,
One other question, is that, I assume that timeline, those services are finished, will be completed by the end of July? Is that
Yes.
about the timeline? Okay,
yes.
thank you.
And we will see the evaluation piece?
Yes, the evaluation piece will not be, it will not be the kind of rigorous evaluation that you can expect from our larger, more formal RFPs, because we don't, just honestly, we don't have the software in place yet to track everything the way that we would ideally, but we will require reporting, and that will be built into the contracts.
Because the things that I would think we would need to see is whether they reached the audience they intended to reach.
Correct.
And whether they got the enrollments. I mean, I understand we can't get as detailed, it's a very short turnaround, but we really need to know that they are fulfilling at least those basics.
Absolutely, and I normally don't like just strictly quantitative, just numbers of how many people you served. I'd like to see some kind of change in behavior, some kind of impact. But I just don't know that with this short of a program, with a bridge program like this, I don't know if you could really even measure that.
Well, these students, they're all VPK age, right? So they'll be
Correct.
coming into kindergarten in August.
Right,
So they'll all be tested.
yes.
They both say that they're going to do a test before they come, like, can you hold scissors and cut? And then do a test after they leave, however long the program is. I guess,
But they'll become part of the Early Learning Coalition and the school district's testing protocols, because that identifies whether programs were successful with getting their students ready for kindergarten.
I guess the concern is too, like, long-term, I mean, let's say they don't, we don't know if they're going to work or not. What if they don't work? I guess we just need to figure out the way to, will we always give the whole amount, like the whole 40,000 at the beginning, or are we going to cut it up individually?
That kind of, if I may, that kind
Yeah.
of reaches into one of the gray areas of what Patty was describing, because if a child leaves your place before they're tested and then come to my place and it gets tested, if that child doesn't perform well, we are the one that's looked at as underperforming, not you, although that child has spent the last 4 years with you.
Yeah,
He tested with us.
right.
So although I wholeheartedly get where you are, Tammy, on that, but I think there's a place in this instance for some quantitative, analysis to go on to make sure, again, to Patty's first point, that the targeted area, the targeted community is being reached, whether it's Ready Kids or whether it's potential. But then it is important, I believe, that the testing is done and we take in account, Stephanie, Sister Chair, the notion of where that child was before and now where that child is afterwards.
Yeah, the only caution I would have with that is if you're talking about Ready Kids and it's just a couple of hours workshop, it may help the children be a little more comfortable when they go into a classroom. Is it going to make them 100% prepared for academic success in kindergarten? You know, I don't know that we could make that direct correlation with such a short dosage of intervention.
I agree.
So I would hate to say that it was a failure by looking for a large change, because it is just a very small touch, if you will. The other thing is, when it comes to tracking individual child level data, I think we would probably need a data sharing agreement with the school district to be able to track the children from before they were in the school district system to get the scores on the individual test once they hit the school district. And so that's a whole other process. So on this one, that's why we said we'll just be a little bit looser than we would like to be ideally with the evaluation, because there's just so much that goes behind the process and the mechanism for being able to track really deeply. But your point is well taken. We want to make sure that we're investing in things that work and that have evidence that they're going to work and that are good practices. And we know that these boot camps or transition programs, summer programs, whatever you want to call them, can work. The expectations were very low, even in the RFP. It's just to get them introduced. It's just mainly to get the child ready to go into a classroom with other children if they've never been around other children their age, to know what circle time is, to know how to line up, the very basics to get them ready.
With that being said, maybe this is a great time to ask, were any time limits put on these, whether it's going to be 4 weeks or 6 weeks?
Yes. They all specified in their proposals. The sections of the proposal, if you haven't had a chance to review the RFP, they had to specifically talk about their project design.
Okay.
And what they were going to do with the children and why, and who was going to be doing it, and how well qualified they were, and where, and the budget had to be tied to the services. So the proposals, even though it was a quick turnaround, we still got some quality proposals.
And I know I wouldn't have asked that question. I just, when I saw these four in the quick comments, I didn't see time limits on any of them. And I'm like, okay, what's the time? I kept hoping somebody would ask, but okay.
And they have to be finished with everything before school starts.
Sure.
And then they have to have all of their reimbursement requests into the trust before the end of August, because we need to be able to close out the books and everything with our fiscal year. So,
Tammy, I have a question. Do you know offhand how many children each program, what their target amount of children they're trying to reach with the funding that they requested?
I do not remember offhand.
Right here, it's, the Ready Kids is, minimum was 60, maximum was 150. That was part of the proposal they had to say. And then, hold on, let me, just 1 second. I'm sorry.
You said 60 to 150? Okay.
Just give me a second.
And I have a question after.
Go ahead and ask your question while I'm looking for this.
Well, it goes back to what you're talking about with the evaluation piece. And Dr. Smith has heard me talk about this. Most recently, I was at a conference and we talked about inputs, outcomes. And what you're talking about are inputs.
Right.
So, and I didn't get a chance to review these, so I don't know what they anticipate their outcomes will be. So how will we know if they succeed if we don't know what they intended to see as an end piece to their proposal?
They had that in their proposals. It's just each proposal will have different.
Right. I just need to
outputs or
know that
outcomes.
what they
Yes.
said they were going to
Yes, it
do.
does. Yes,
We
and
have
that-
a way to say that yes, they did accomplish it, or no, they did not.
And that gets reflected typically in individual contracts because they're each different. They just are. And so, for example, when Stephanie finds the
I found it.
number of kids for potential preschool, it's fewer children than Ready Kids, if I remember
It's
correctly.
25.
But the difference is the Ready Kids model is that they do workshops, so
it's-
they're short and
It's
intensive.
only 3 workshops for 2 hours each, and I don't think it's the same children. That was one of my questions. Is it the same
Yeah.
kids? Is it different kids?
Yeah.
We don't know, so.
The committee seemed to think that it was the same children, I believe, was the consensus. So I don't know how they came to that conclusion. But so it goes back to what I was saying about the dosage. And so then with the potential preschool, it's a full day, all week, for several weeks program. So it's depth versus breadth.
For the
How many-
potential preschool, it's
how many-
7:30 to 4,
How many children did you say?
25. Right now, they have 38 students, but we will grant 25 more children access to our program.
I mean, it's my recollection, quite frankly, that there has been basically a big debate all along about getting money out quickly or, and there's, different philosophies all along the way. I mean, we were trying to sprinkle the community, and in order to sprinkle the community, it's not going to look like what we would ideally want it to look like. And so I think all we're doing really is talking again about what we as a board are going to do. Are we going to try and get it out fast and quick and loose? Or are we going to hold on to it tighter and wait until all the Ts are crossed and the Is are dotted? So,
Well, and I think that's a great point. I think that's the reality of this situation is we want to activate some activity. And I do know that when you have programs like this, sometimes it does take a while, especially when it's more intangible based. We're talking about transitional fluency going into kindergarten. Will this help that? How does that manifest itself? And it could be the interaction with the adults, could be the interaction with fellow students, it could be the routines and structures that are garnered. So that is a tricky thing to measure quickly. Typically, the teachers who are going to be working with the children who have benefited from the program will gain some insight as they go through the first 9 weeks. So those programs, that in itself is not uncommon to have some boot camps and some ramp-up programs, 1 week, 2 week programs to really try to just bolster up our students. The other side of that coin is, what does next summer look like? Are we going to do summer programs next year? And it does benefit the organization if they can show some gain. And again, this may be very anecdotal based. I do like the piece of where we can reach for quantitative measures. That's always beneficial. I think Pastor Wesley makes a great point on, are we servicing the targeted population of young people? And I think that is a quantitative measure that we can grab a hold of, is what is the free and reduced lunch rate? What is the attendance rate of the students that we are serving? So there are a couple foundational metrics that we could utilize there.
Where the student lives,
Yes, that's a great piece too.
32505.
Yes, important measure. So I think that category of measures, the more demographic-based measures, such as free and reduced lunch, those I think we can grab a hold of.
Yeah.
And I think that will be helpful data to review, and especially looking down the road for next summer if we are to do programs, or really any of our programs. That's a great measure to have. So just a few thoughts on that, because I know it is a short timeline. If we're looking at some key reading structures, that could be hard unless we have a robust pre and post test to implement.
I think that, I'm sitting here, I was a little, I guess, last time I heard was who wants to serve on the RFP committee, thinking the board was going to be that. We've handled everything from the get-go, every single item. I didn't even know you were forming an outside committee to look at it. and then I didn't see the proposals, and so it makes me uncomfortable not digging into these. I have more, faith is a better word than Ready Kids, because I know they're established and I know who they are. I'm not comfortable with potential right now. I haven't seen the work, and I trust the people that looked at it, but I'm with the judge. I don't want to be rushing so fast to sprinkle, and I'm not comfortable right now making a vote on, I would vote for Ready Kids to move forward. I need to see more information about Potential Academy. I don't know the background, and that's just me. But moving forward, though, I want to know the aspect of the board. What's your feelings about outside committees? We haven't discussed that. I thought with getting started, I really like to have a handle on what we're doing, since it's our names on the line and what we're trying to achieve here.
Definitely, that's something we need to talk about. I will say, though, Tammy did email us and ask us several times if we wanted to be on the grants committee. So she did. I mean, I was supposed to be on it, and I was out of town, so I was on it. Tori was supposed to be on it.
Yeah,
so,
and I think with the email moving,
maybe with the email moving,
I missed that
everyone missed
meeting.
it. So, I mean, I have it pulled up from May the 11th. If you're interested in serving on the grants committee, please email me separately. So she did ask us, and she asked the last board meeting in person, so I will say that. But as I've told Tammy several times that we are a very hands-on board, it's just different than a lot of boards that she's probably served on, is that we want to see everything, touch everything, at least for right now. We want to be a part of it, and we're not just gonna, sign checks. So, because we just want to know everything, until we get more comfortable. So that's why, I definitely think that we all need to see the proposals before we vote on them, even if we're not on the committees. So, but we can have a discussion now as to whether y'all want outside people on them.
I'm okay with the outside people inclusively, meaning that we are involved as well in bringing in these outside, knowing the old adage, none of us is as good as all of us. And we got people in different, not just these RFPs, but going forward in the future. But I was going to just make the obvious comment that we've talked about these two organizations and evaluating them and outcomes of these grants, et cetera. I see these two, or whoever they were on here that we awarded to, being a very steep part of the learning curve for us as well. As Stephanie brought up the idea, are we going to be making lump sum grants? Or are we going to portion them out over time based on results reflected? All sorts of questions, I think, that are out there in all of our minds individually and collectively as we do get this process, just with the hope of having transparency in the process and recognizing we are acting as stewards of the community's funding. And that we're all able to say that, hey, we understood this, we're on board with it, the outcomes, we're going to be monitoring those and looking forward. But I also understand and can contrast that with the desire to get something going. And this plainly is an area of need, so I can see that as well. But I would agree with this idea that we are a very hands-on group here that interested in being involved with the process, or at least having that option.
I would say too, also, like, I got that email about, would you like to be on the grants committee? And I responded back, yes, and then it was crickets. So I don't know if that had something to do with the transfer of the email server or what, but I also agree that if we're gonna be voting on something like this, we really should be able to see the proposal and read it ourselves, because we're flying blind here. With the grants committee and the people on what they recommended, but we ourselves don't know what is in those proposals.
Okay. So I can absolutely share the proposals, and anything that you ever want to see, I'm more than happy to send it. And it might be worthwhile to have a special meeting of some sort if the chair wishes to call one, so that we can go through what a whole grants process looks like typically versus what you all would like, because I've been doing this for 30 years, and so I've kind of gotten into a habit of it. And normally when we start really rolling with this and we do what I'm going to continue to refer to as a real process, we could potentially get hundreds of applications. And so but your point is well taken. This is new. This is the first time. You all haven't been through this before, and I have to remember that. So it might be worth us going through what the full process A to Z looks like so you can make a more informed decision about how involved you want to be at each step. Because normally you would have a grants committee because you don't know how many applications you're going to get in. And then feedback as far as how, I was actually just saying to Meredith before the meeting started that I would like to do a policy around the different committees to bring to you all for consideration, because we really do need to put some structure and some definition around what each of the different committees does, because with us only meeting once a month and trying to move things very quickly, it's a struggle. And so I do want to do this right, and I do want to absolutely keep you in the loop 100% of the time. If you were able to access your emails, you know I send a lot of information via email, and that is just in an attempt to keep you in the loop. And if you ever need anything or have a question, please email me. Don't copy each other. Don't reply all. But you can definitely let me know, and I will share everything with you. I'm trying to walk that fine line between sending you way too much information for you to go through, because I know you have a full-time day job. So if you want those, I will absolutely share the full proposals with you. And
Wouldn't we put the proposals on our website for the public to see them?
not usually, because first of all, that'll get really onerous when there are a lot of them. And then second of all, sometimes the proposers, they don't want everybody to see their work because some of it could be proprietary. And so then we have to go back and redact things potentially if they've got something that is specific.
I think we need to hear from the attorney on that, because I think we're a public entity, and so
historically, I know with this board, any responses to an RFP or any document like that has been posted on the website the day following the opening. Those are public records and would be available for anyone to ask either way, but I think the process in the past has been that it's been posted online.
And that's after they're turned in and after they're
the
closed,
deadline.
so nobody has the opportunity to look at it prior to them submitting their own proposal. That's closed, and then everybody has an opportunity to see them. And then that way you don't have to send them to us individually. We can just go online and look at them like everybody else.
Do they have to be posted if they're?
There's no requirement in law that you post them online.
Maybe we need to have a special meeting where we can break out a couple hours, and just so we can discuss, do we want them posted, and just to discuss, are we going to do a full contract at 40,000? Are we going to break it up over time? Are we going to have a committee? Who's on the committee? Just all these issues that we haven't set down to really, hasn't really come in front of us yet. So we have, and to learn what you have done for your past 30 years, because I think we all have different ideas of how we think this should run. And maybe we can put that together with your thoughts. So does that sound?
Yeah, that would be really helpful for me to have that kind of guidance, because I'm copying a lot of what long-term, well-established CSCs in other parts of the state have done, but then they've been around since 1986 or 1946, and so they're a different breed. And so even something as far as posting, because none of the other CSCs, to my knowledge, post all of their proposals online, because just the act of doing that for a staff person is very time consuming, because, I mean, no kidding, we could potentially get hundreds of these. So we want to make sure that whatever process we put in place, we either specify that it's temporary until you all get comfortable with it, or we say that this is the process moving forward, because it could change very quickly. So Leon County, for example, put out an RFP for the capacity building grants for summer programs, and they got, how many, Kim? They got 50 applications. So, and so it depends on what you put the application out for. And I just don't want you all to get bombarded. So, that would be very helpful to me if we could have a meeting like that, just to go through the process.
Madam Chair, could we ask our attorney to do some research on that and just make sure that if we don't have to do it, that's, I mean, it makes sense that if you've got 100 proposals out there, that would be a lot to post, but I'd just like to be sure we're on the, as you said, we as a group are getting used to doing this, and we want to be able to see those things, but, for policy, I'd like to know what the best policy would be on that.
So I'd like to raise the question, what do we do with these recommendations? Because where we are right now is time is ticking on summer. And so my mind goes, do we need to review proposals and then call a special meeting? Or how do we, as a board, what are we thinking?
Go ahead, Parliamentarian.
I'm willing to make a motion to approve the two that have been recommended, but I didn't know that we were to that point yet.
Are you finished with your executive director report?
No.
Let's
But I'll
finish
make it
that
quick.
first.
I'll make it, I think there's only one more slide. It's very quick. So it's just the next steps. It's all the stuff that we need to do next. And so, and you've probably already read this, but we have the Director of Finance starting next week. We've got to prepare contracts for the new grants, and that will take a little bit because that's where we do the negotiation with the budgets and going back and forth on that. The trim process is coming up. I've been emailing with the property appraiser. We got our estimate for revenue for next year, and it's 11.9 million. So we have to figure out what we're going to do with the money that we have left from this year and next year and roll that in. Then we're still working on a meet and greet, the needs assessment, the second RFP, if you all approve that, we need to get that out. And then we've got to get the software platforms. We've got to decide on that, whether we're going to go with SAMUS or something else. And so now that Kim is on board and when the finance director gets on board, we can get that because we have to set up all the fields to be able to capture all the data before we put out an RFP that requires them to submit all the data. We have to have a way to pull that in. And then also looking at some partnerships to do some joint funding because we realize that there's a lot that needs to be done, especially after reading just these 4 proposals. We need to do something around some training for some of our smaller nonprofits. And need to make sure that they understand where we're going to be coming from because we're really going to be looking for results and outcomes and some robust evaluations. And then there is a process that some of the other CSC programs use called results-based accountability, and that's like an uppercase name of an actual process. So if you're interested in learning more about that, let me know, or you can Google it and you'll see that whole process. And that's something that we are really interested in looking at and implementing across the board for all of our grantees. So that's the end of the report.
All right, thank you. All right, a question? Ms.
I do have a
Hightower?
question. Because, just lost my.
Oh, sorry.
Because I remember how involved the trim process was and the additional meetings, et cetera, that we have to schedule. I would like to know those dates, because we have to do them in July, correct?
Yes, I believe that's correct.
And I don't know that we're anticipating that we can get it done on the 11th, or whether, because there's all these, if this happens and this happens and this happens, that kind of stuff. So I'm worried about us not having it on our calendar already, and I would like in the future that we plan out a year ahead so that we're getting.
We get the certified form, the DR 420 or whatever the right numbers are for that form, the trim form. We get that certified from the county. It is due to us by July 1st. and that's when it really starts. And you have a draft budget that was sent out with the last board meetings packet, and that's going to be updated, a draft, of course, for your review. That's going to be updated with the new revenue estimate. And then we have to project how much we think we'll spend out of this budget so that I can get another budget draft ready. And then to your point about the meetings, I just need to get with Dr. Smith to get his availability because he's the chair of the budget committee, the finance committee. So we've just got to get that on. And then once we pick a date, then we have to notice it
Yeah.
a week in advance.
That's the part
So
that's,
yeah, so I've got to get all that on the calendars, but that starts, we can't really move until after July, I don't think.
There are also specific statutory requirements related to not only the manner of advertising, but also ensuring that the trim budget process for this meeting doesn't conflict with the BCC's
Or the
budget
school
meeting.
board.
Or the school board's meeting. So I'll work with Ms. Greer to make sure that we have that all in line.
and do we have to vote on the millage rate again, as we did last year?
Yes, so every year the millage will come up. There will be 2 actual trim hearings held. The first is the proposed millage rate. The second is to finalize that millage rate. There's a resolution that'll be prepared and read by the chair addressing the rollback rate, if there is such, and there's certain statutory requirements, and it's very specific, and we can use the template from last year to prepare that and get that to Ms. White.
Yeah, I can't believe it's already that time again. We just did this. All right. Okay, thank you, Ms. Greer. All right, next we're going to move to our action items, and we have 2. The first is the recommendations for funding, which we just discussed, the kindergarten bridge project proposals. Is there a motion on the floor?
I move to recommend, to adopt the recommendation of the Grants Committee to fund Potential Preschool Academy and Ready Kids Florida.
Is there a second?
Melissa Sidoti, second.
Any discussion on that?
Well, I think to Dr. Smith's point is that if we're going to do this, we've got to get the money out there and get the program started, or else probably the time will be gone and we won't be able to have any. And I think we've had a wonderful discussion about what we're looking for and what we're thinking about, and it'll be a good starting place as we see the results as they come in.
Is there a way to separate these instead of voting for both of them at once, to separate them? I'd move to amend that we separate the 2.
I second that.
Any discussion on that? All right, so now we need to vote on the amendment to separate. All right, now we're
Well,
going
you
to,
have-
Actually,
hold on, Dr. Smith. Do you have a discussion?
I just a discussion point.
Yes, sir.
So with the separation, are we talking about separate votes for each of the item?
Yes.
Okay. As opposed to a collective vote. Got it. Okay. Thank you for that clarification.
So all in favor to, I'm sorry.
Discussion. I heard Bruce Watson's name, and I heard a former kindergarten teacher. Who was the third person that was on this committee?
The executive director for Achieve Escambia, if I'm correct, was
All right,
Myra.
thank you.
Yes.
All in favor to move to separate the 2 items, one as a vote for Potential Preschool Academy and then a separate vote for Ready Kids Florida? Say aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay. So now back to the floor, we have an amendment to separate them. So we'll start from the beginning again. Is there a motion on the floor or recommendation on the floor for Potential Preschool Academy?
I make a motion to vote.
To approve.
To approve Potential Preschool Academy.
Is there-
Second.
Any discussion on that? All right, Dr. Smith? All right, all in favor of that, say aye.
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 Any opposed?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, so it was, there's how many of us here? There was 7-2, so it passes. Okay, the next one is for Ready Kids Florida. Is there a recommendation on the floor for Ready Kids Florida?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, so that one passes. Okay, now we're going to do the RFP for public education outreach campaigns, which was sent to us in your board packet. So is there a motion to approve this RFP?
I make a motion to approve the RFP, the Water Safety and Resources
Second.
RFP.
Is there any discussion on this? I do have a question. It says that, I just lost it too. Hold on. It says that you have to partner with, that two people have to partner together. Can you explain that a little bit?
One of the things that I've heard in talking with all the various agencies is that a lot of things happen in silos. And so when it comes to a public education campaign, what we're trying to do is to force some partnerships and some collaboration so that we don't get competing proposals to do the same thing, or that may potentially have competing messages or different nuances on the messaging. And so the idea is to have groups get together and collaborate instead of compete against each other.
I like that. Any more questions or discussion?
And I apologize because I didn't read this very thoroughly. Is this a public education and outreach specifically toward water safety, or is it a water safety and early childhood education? And is that where the partnering has to come in? Okay.
It's to do a public education and outreach campaign around either topic, or you could propose to do it around both topics. The topics are unrelated.
Okay. As I read it on the agenda, I was going, it looks like it's
No, they're-
together, and so I was confused.
It's just so that we didn't have to do two separate RFP processes parallel to each other. And so it's just two different topics, but all of the same rules around the application process still apply.
So
If that makes
someone could put in an RFP to do something on water safety?
Correct.
And that would be evaluated? Okay.
Right,
Just-
right.
I have a question. This may go back to some of Stephanie's comments of us getting some format together. One of the roles that I have seen this entire committee playing, I'm going to use the analogy of air traffic controllers or triage from my background, that type of thing. And the question that came up about trying to encourage collaboration, I love the concept. Is there something that this committee or this smaller grants committee will be doing? I can see these small organizations out in the community thinking, hey, that's something great, having no idea whatsoever that some other organization is doing something similarly, and that partnering between them would be a phenomenal synergistic benefit to all parties involved, but they don't know. And is that something that we foresee either with this? I know this is short timing. We're getting towards the end of the summer. As I read the timeline, and the need for water safety, I will say, is something that goes on year round. But is it something, again, that we see a mechanism for this entity when we start getting respondents and we start reviewing them going, wow, this sounds a lot like this one we got from this organization. I wonder if they know what's going on between them and they could really collaborate and make a much stronger proposal? Or is that something that we're just leaving that, what I see as vital step, to chance? So.
That is absolutely something that boards can do, that grant committees can do. I have experienced funders doing exactly that in my career. And when you're on the receiving end of that, you feel terribly offended, and how could they not just love my proposal? But then when it all plays out, it is a beautiful thing typically for all of the parties involved, because you do realize each other's strengths when you're forced, and it's amazing what funding can do and how you can force some collaboration. I hate to say that, but that way you get a better return on the investment. And so we absolutely could. And you'll note in this RFP, we didn't put in the cone of silence piece so that we can have those conversations as these proposals come in.
And I was going to say, I did go to the grants meeting that she had at Brownsville, and that was one of the things she encouraged after the meeting. Everyone was there, talked about what they did, and so you did have opportunity there to talk to other people to kind of see what their vision was and see if there was opportunity for you guys to work together. So I did see that in action at the grants meeting when people came afterwards. They stayed out there for 20 or 30 minutes just talking and connecting, so.
Any more discussion on the RFP? All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. That's all we have to vote on tonight. I would ask that if you will send out another doodle poll, which is allowed for us to find us time for a couple of hours, one morning or afternoon, whatever works best for everybody to get together. We also need to schedule a personnel committee meeting, and you need a budget committee meeting scheduled as well. So maybe they can be done around the same time, so people can come in and come out. I don't know, just a thought. It might be too long to do that. So is there any more business to discuss for the board?
I'll just note that I will not be at our July meeting. I'm teaching at a conference for quorum purposes.
Have a question, and this is going to be the dummy on the committee here, of clarification in regards to what members are on what committees. I know we'd spoken about that, and you've done a tremendous amount of work. All you've got to do is look at the website. Thank you for that. There was going to be a little subset, I think, of what members are on what committees to give some ideas. Has there been any, or have I missed finding that somewhere on the website, or? Okay.
That's not on the website yet, but once it's completed, I'll add it to the Board of Directors page.
Great, thank you.
Madam President, I will also be out for the July 12th meeting. I have an engagement with the church that day.
Dr. Smith?
Yes, Madam Chair, I just have a question. Actually, I have two things. I have a question that I would like to just have or share in the sunshine, and it has to do with the school board. And the question is, or I should say school district, sorry. Sorry. The question is the school district a viable applicant for Children's Trust, a grant, a proposal, or not? And I'm just not sure on the answer to that question.
So statutorily, the trust funds can't pay for anything that is a responsibility of the school district. There may be a set of circumstances that's very fact-specific where the school district has some plan or idea to provide some service that's within the scope of the board's purview that is not typically supported by school district funds, so something outside the realm of what a school district does, that foreseeably, I would tread carefully. I would be very cautious about it. It's not precluded. There's nothing that says a school district can't apply, but the purpose of the school district, I'm sure there are statutes and regulations that govern what you guys do. And if you're funding, if it's something that your funding should support, the trust cannot support that or fund that. Does that make sense?
Yes, very much so. Thank you for that clarification, because I just wasn't entirely sure of the landscape there.
And I want to say that I've seen maybe where some school districts have been funded or have been involved in other programs. So that may be something that if you're joining this coalition, you could reach out and get information and share that with you.
Okay. Yes, thank you very much. I did have one other thing, too. I just want to tip my hat to Executive Director Greer, because we just approved our first expenditure on the Children's Trust. So thank you for leading us through that. Thank you.
The thing I was going to ask is I was wondering if the same holds true for the county government. Because I know that I've seen some of the things that have, where the county and maybe like Parks and Recreation have partnered with an outside organization to put a program in place. So would they have the same
There's not the same,
cautions?
same specific regulation in the statute as it is that addresses the school district funding, but there is a requirement that trust funds not be used to supplant other funds. So if it's a funded program that the county has funded for a Parks and Rec program, then the trust shouldn't also then fund it. If it's something new and novel, I would say, again, tread carefully, let's look at it closely, but, you know, I'm sure there are ways that everyone can work together and use this money for the greater good.
And then Meredith, Tammy?
May I add something? Forgive my ignorance, but in the whole process with the campaign and everything that you all have been through and all the blood, sweat, and tears that you've put into getting this going, which thank you, have you all ever had just kind of a general meeting to talk about all the things that a Children's Services Council can do, can't do, the kinds of like restrictions around the funding, how the money moves? Would it be helpful to have that? Because I apologize, it just occurred to me when you asked those questions that you may not have ever gotten that. And so I came in making some assumptions, and now I feel quite like a fool, because if you never had that, then you're probably wondering what the heck I'm doing sometimes, and I apologize.
I think
That
we
mo-
had some
we can
meetings
add
that
that.
were in basic acronyms
Yeah.
at the very beginning from Tallahassee that I didn't find all that helpful. based
Why
on the
don't we add
acronyms
that to
alone.
our special meeting? Yes, just a briefer. Also, before we leave, Meredith wants to do a quick refresher that I messed up on.
So just very briefly, please be reminded of the sunshine regulations regarding communications between board members. They must occur in the sunshine, which requires advertising, minutes taken, and open to the public. This would include text messaging, emails, so I know we can all, you know, sometimes reply all, or get in group chats, but I would just caution you that it's a civil infraction, it can also be a criminal violation. We can do a full, you know, refresher at a later date on the sunshine law, but just be careful in communicating with other board members regarding any matter that is before you now or could foreseeably come before you. So if it has anything related to children, you know, unless you're talking about your own kids and their baseball game or whatever, that's fine. But anything related to community children or programming, don't have those conversations or engage in any communication with one another.
All right, I don't think there's any public comment, is there? No. All right, so at this time, was there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second? All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right, have a great night.